Like sands through the hourglass. These are the days of Aiyuk's life. Man, this thing never ends, but I think we're going to get some clarity tonight with my guy on the show. That being said, there is more to talk about than Brandon Aiyuk, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job of that throughout the course of this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the preseason game. Yes, football is right around the corner for the San Francisco 49ers. They have a preseason game versus the Titans in just 2 days. You wouldn't know it based off of the way that everything's being talked about. And there have been 3 roster moves that we have to discuss as well. We will do so next, plus much, much more. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Thursday night, which means I got my guy Marco Martinez in the building. Marco, what's up, my man?
What is up? What is up, Jesse? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. Zach's here just to see me. So in case you were wondering who his favorite was, it's not you.
Sounds about right. I mean, it's cool. I don't even want Zach to be here anyways.
What's up, Zach? I see you tapping in over from the Twitter sphere. Got a lot of the regulars in here. Dave already coming in and said, waiting on Jesse ever since I recall. Appreciate you, Dave, with the early super chat. Actually, you know what? We didn't have this as a topic. I think we might make this a topic. So I'm going to star this because you and I have some thoughts as far as that goes. All right. That being said, though, we do have some roster moves from the San Francisco 49ers over the course of the last 24 hours. The 49ers have signed the great Robbie Chosen, artist formerly known as Robbie Anderson, Tracy Walker, and Jonathan Garvin, because everybody knows who he is. So these 3 players, is it as simple as they are camp bodies, or what do you see from these 3?
No, actually, I think some of them are I think Tracy Walker and I think Robbie Chosen. I think they have a chance to make the roster. I think looking at Tracy Walker in the safety room, right? You have obviously Hufanga. We don't know if he's going to be active week 1. So that possibly is a guy who could potentially make the roster. You do have George Odom. You have guys like Malik Mustafa and obviously Jair Brown. I think he has a possibility depending on injuries, right? Like if Hufanga isn't ready, you got to have someone who has the ability to start, be a special teamer. And I think that's what Tracy Walker brings you. Now, at that 6th receiver spot or 5th receiver spot, however you want to look at it, if the Niners do decide to trade Brandon Aiyuk, we'll get to that in a little bit, but they need somebody who's proven in the NFL, right? You're banking on a bunch of rookies to step up right away. And I know Kyle doesn't like that. We've heard Kyle verbally say it before. He doesn't like having to play rookies, and I think that's what it's weird calling him Robbie Chosen, like Robbie Anderson. Like it's like Chosen should be his nickname or something. Like that's a cool name, but it's just I think he has the potential to be a late guy who makes the roster. He could return punts, solid receiver, and the Niners need someone to play that extra position. He could play that X position. They don't have any. If you look at their roster, they don't have any X receivers outside of, Brandon Aiyuk. If they end up bringing him back, I guess you could argue Tay Martin, Chris Conley. But even then, are you going to count on those guys to play for you week 1 if you have to call on them?
Well, let's talk. Let's go player by player. We'll start with Tracy Walker because that's who you started with. And we'll talk about the implications and maybe why these guys are here and try to figure it out together. So Tracy Walker, not great in coverage. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. I think he's around 28, 29 years old, played with the Lions. Decent safety, definitely some good depth. Really good blitzer. Really, really good blitzer. Not great in coverage. So is Tracy Walker here simply for a camp body, in your opinion, until Hufanga gets back? Or is this kind of letting us know that there's a good chance Hufanga is not going to be ready to go week 1? What do you think about that?
I think it's a camp body until Huff is back. I think Huff will be back starting next week. You'll start seeing
Okay.
him get run, but you also have like we don't know how that knee's going to respond, right? Like we don't know how it's going to. As soon as he starts
Yeah.
going full speed, he could feel like something that sets him back, and now we're like, oh snap, we're going to play someone else who we don't trust. At least Tracy Walker and the Niners, they want to blitz, man. Like with the
Mhm.
bringing over why cannot Brandon Staley, he wants to blitz from the secondary, and that's something.
Yeah.
If you have Tracy Walker there, at least you know he's capable of filling in that role, and he could play special teams. I think it'll end up being between Odom, Mustafa, and Brown as your top three safeties, and you got to have someone who has the experience, and I think he has the experience being a good veteran presence to mentor a guy like Mustafa. That's very important as well. So being there preseason, right? If Walker's not playing, when Mustafa comes to the sideline, explaining to him is going to be very key for him. So I think right now, as of now, I'm going to say it's a camp body, but he has the potential. If there's anything with that knee, I think he would get called upon before a guy like why can I not think of his name? I really like him at safety, Taylor Hawkins.
Malik? Oh,
No,
Taylor Hawkins. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he would.
Okay.
I think they would give him that opportunity before Taylor Hawkins because he's a veteran.
Hawkins laid out Camelot too. One of the days at practice, he leveled him. That was the hardest hit probably of the 4 days I was there. Okay, so we've talked about Tracy Walker. Let's talk about Robbie Chosen. Do you feel like this signifies at all that they are either willing or close to moving Brandon Aiyuk, or do you think this is simply like, well, again, another veteran? We've got injuries to the young wide receivers as well. Camp body, but also might be a guy that sticks around if we do, in fact, move on from Brandon Aiyuk. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, especially if Kyle's like, if you look at Kyle's offense, like he truly has an offense that he runs. He doesn't change it upon who is his personnel. Taking a look at the receivers, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, the Niners have a ton of receivers. Ronnie Bell, he could play outside, but you want him. If you want his best abilities, it's in the slot. Looking at Trent Taylor in the slot, Jacob Cowing in the slot, Danny Gray,
Pearsall,
most slot. Like all these receivers are slot receivers, and you want someone to be able to throw out there. Now, if you throw out one of those rookies, they're going to probably struggle, and the next thing you know, it's going to be, oh, that player sucks because blah, blah, like I could already see it, right? If Pearsall is playing that X position, he's going to struggle, and you're going to see a lot of people criticizing him for a position that he's playing when it's not his position. He's best at a slot. So that's where I think it's more so like a camp body. But then if they do trade Brandon Aiyuk and they don't get anything in return, you may see him on the roster, which is very concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you look at him and you look at Conley, most likely your outside receivers if BA's not on the roster and they don't bring in anybody else. So, but that's really it, right? Like those are your only true guys, along with Debo, obviously. But as far as an X receiver goes, like that would be it. So you kind of need a competition between the two. You don't want to just hand it over to Conley necessarily. Not that Conley's awful, but we'll see. All right. Now, Jonathan Garvin, we know why he's here. It's because they need edge depth. And Drake Jackson's season is already over for the San Francisco 49ers. They've put him on IR, ending his season. Probably not ever going to see him on this roster again, I would imagine. So that ship has sailed. What, if anything, do you know about Jonathan Garvin?
Played for the UFL, I believe. That's all I really know about him. Not much. Like I think, like you said, it's his role was replace Drake Jackson, like be a camp body. Obviously, we need that depth there. It sucks to see Drake Jackson in health be the reason why he's out of the league within 3 years. Like that to me, it's awful because he does have some athletic traits that you do like, but that knee injury and everything like that, it's rough, man. It's never was ever to put it all together. It just sucked. Honestly, I really do feel bad for Drake Jackson, even though last year I did say he wasn't going to be much of a player last year after his 3-game sack. And it just sucks that that's what he's going to be known for, is that 3-game sack against the damn Pittsburgh Steelers.
Man. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, there you go. Yeah, man, it does suck, but it sounds like, at least with the 49ers, I mean, maybe they'll give him another chance next year. I doubt it. I think he'll probably end up being gone. But Jonathan Garvin, 1.5 career sacks, played with the Packers a little bit. Don't know much about him other than, they got to bring in somebody. Let's talk about this real quick. It wasn't a topic by any means, but it did happen within the division. This is a player that, if you pay close attention to this channel, I've brought him up since before the draft, I believe, in a video. And I thought that Connor Williams should have been a guy that the 49ers targeted. They certainly had money to do it. I think he signed a 1-year, $6 million deal, which was pretty close to what I estimated he would ask for. It's very much a prove it deal. When he's healthy, he's one of the top 5 centers in the NFL, especially with Kelsey retiring. He can play guard and he can play center. He just played for the Miami Dolphins, who run this same exact system that you're looking for, and is coming off of an ACL, but sounds like he's going to be ready to go week 1. He's now signed with the Seattle Seahawks. So, what are your overall thoughts about Connor Williams and him signing with the Seattle Seahawks, since it happened within division?
It's going to be great for them. Like, it sucks for us because now their O-line is really good. Like, if they could all put it together, their O-line, and they should be able to run the ball, and that's concerning. They have 2 good running backs, and you don't have to force Connor Williams to be a starter right away. Let him come through and actually get his knee right. He could probably sit the first 5 weeks of the season, and towards the end of the year, they're going to be playing their best football. Now, continuity and everything is probably a concern. If you're a Seahawks fan, you're like, oh man, he's not practicing. I want the line to be practicing together already fully. But man, that's a huge pickup. It's very underrated. That's for sure. Like, I honestly, I like what the Seahawks have done this offseason in terms of who they've brought in and their coaching staff and helping everyone out there. Like, it's going to be fun to watch them against the 49ers in the trenches, because I think their O-line and their D-line could give us some trouble. And obviously adding Connor Williams is definitely going to give you something to think about. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the way that they've built this offensive line, they drafted 2 tackles 2 seasons ago, so they're going into year 3. Both are pretty talented, but they've had some injuries. They've got backup tackles that, frankly, I would take either of their backup tackles over McKivitz. They drafted, arguably, in my opinion, the best guard prospect in this year's draft, the kid from UConn. So they got him in round 3. True guard. Yeah. Now they bring in Connor Williams to anchor that center spot. And then they've got a guy who I also liked, who was a tackle that went to Utah, who is going to play guard. They drafted him as well. Really liked him this year. We'll see what he ends up being. But he's going to compete with Laken Tomlinson, who we know is a veteran. He was good here. He's been a hit and miss everywhere else he's been. Maybe he has something left. Maybe he doesn't. But overall, that offensive line is pretty solidified. Obviously, injuries can catch anybody. But, man, just top to bottom, that's a really good offensive line. And the reason you like what they've done and the reason I like what they've done is that we both believe that building your team should be done through the trenches. That's not the way that the 49ers look at things. And so we often have conflict with how the 49ers have built their roster because we don't necessarily agree with the philosophy.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to build is through the trenches. I mean, everything starts in the middle of everything, and right there, it just makes the most sense. Obviously, the Niners, initially, their plan was to build through the trenches when they first got here in 2017. That's why they drafted offensive linemen. They drafted a lot of defensive linemen years in a row. Like, their plan was to build through the trenches. I don't know if that was just maybe a 1-year thing or what it was, or a few-year thing. But, man, it's definitely... And I think their biggest, Jesse, I think their biggest addition that's not talked about is their offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb. He is a phenomenal offensive coordinator, offensive mind, and he's going to make things easy for Geno Smith. He has the weapons, the running game. He's going to be a really good offensive coordinator in the NFL, and I'm excited to watch the creativity he brings from the college level to the NFL, because he could scheme stuff up, man.
Corey coming through clutch with names. One thing you'll recognize about me is that if I don't remember your name right away, I usually remember what college you went to. And so that's what I'll say. This is the college they went to. I don't remember the name for whatever reason right now. But yes, Christian Haynes and Satoa Luamia or whatever, however you pronounce it. Brother Bob says, sup, you mofos. Dave, you too. Screw Kyle Levy. All right. Dave Barclay says, my brother Bob, trade Kyle Levy. Brother Bob says, Marco, my brother, spill the beans from yesterday. We'll get to that. And then he says, how did Drake hurt his knee sitting on the bench? It just never healed right, it sounds like, from last year, unfortunately. Dave says, Marco is doing bigger things than we know soon. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then Vegas Hot says, here's $2. Appreciate you, everybody, for contributing. Vegas Hot, thank you very much. Okay, let's talk about this preseason game, because the 49ers do play football in just 2 short days, right? So who are you excited to see? We're not going to see a lot of starters. We know how Kyle Shanahan does things. We're not going to see a lot of starters or anything like that. But there is going to be a lot of roster battles, some position battles, guys fighting for spots, camp battles, everything are going to play out. And what I love about this is you've been hearing from everybody, myself included, how certain players have done in camp or how they're doing in camp. Well, now you get to see those players for yourselves and say, hey, this guy is somebody, or man, what's all this that we heard about him in camp? Either sucking or being good. And now they're the opposite. What's up with that? So that being said, who, Marco, are you excited to see in camp and why?
The whole time we're watching this game on Saturday, we're going to be like, what was Jesse and Coach looking at?
Yeah, basically.
Why did they report that? Obviously, because when you play against someone else who doesn't know what you're doing, you look a lot different than cheating on defense and stuff like that. But not definitely, like, when I'm looking at it, do you think Ricky Pearsall plays? I don't think he does. I don't think Ricky Pearsall plays week 1.
No, I don't think so.
I was excited to see him until I finally talked myself into why, like, Kyle Shanahan won't let him play. Plus that shoulder injury that he just got kind of sucks to not be able to see your number 1 rookie that you just drafted. But a couple of guys that I'm looking at, I want to see Cody Schrader. I love the way he runs the ball. I think he's better than Isaac Arendo.
Good, man, he's good.
And he's going to be a guy that shines in preseason, because most of these guys in preseason don't want to tackle. Like, they're kind of like, let me get through preseason without getting hurt kind of mentality. Some of those guys are going to get hurt when he runs them over. That's going to be fun to watch. A guy that hasn't gotten talked about much, but I think now with the Drake Jackson IR where he's done for the year, Robert Bill. I think this is an opportunity where people were banking on Drake Jackson to have a breakout year 3. Hopefully Robert Bill, with the 15 pounds of muscle he's added, could show something in training camp. My favorite guy that I'm like super excited to watch. And I don't know why, but I really want to see Jacob Cowing. Like, so when you watch Jacob Cowing's film, I feel like he's a home run hitter, just waiting to get a hold of one. And I think when in a preseason game with like a guy like Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, those two battling, if he's on the field with one of them, they're going to take shots to him. They're going to actually they're going to put it out there for him. And I think with his speed on display, the route running and everything like that, obviously he's not going to be someone who's blocking and doing all that. So I'm excited to see Jacob Cowing. If I had to choose one player that I'm most excited about, it's probably Jacob Cowing throughout the preseason.
I'm excited to see him as well. I also am curious to see if he plays, because he's had the no contact jersey and he's just getting back. So I don't know that he's going to play either this week, but I am excited to watch him and Pearsall through the preseason. Next couple games, hopefully they'll be able to play. Schrader was on my list. I'm really excited to watch both the Winters and Jalen Graham. I think both of them have shown quite a bit. Last year, I saw a lot from Jalen Graham during camp. This year, he showed up again. D. Winters has taken a major step forward. He looks really good. So I want to see both of them as well. And then, I think Mustafa, Renardo Green, I want to see. Hooney. I mean, now that I'm starting to go down the list, there's a lot of guys that I'm actually really excited to see. So yeah, I'm going to be tuned in, man. I'm going to be tuned in watching this game. Very excited to see the results and just how some of these guys turn out and play. But I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with both linebackers that I mentioned, and I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised with Trader, because I think he's a pretty damn good player.
Especially D Winners, getting run with the ones recently. Like, I think that's going to be huge for him. Like, the speed, being able to see the speed with the ones, and then going, and if he's playing with the twos, it's going to be much slower for him. It's going to slow down drastically for him. So you're going to see him flying around. Obviously, I believe Graham got run with the ones earlier in the training camp. So, man, those two linebackers, I think they're much better than Devondre Campbell. Like, if I'm being honest, like, I think I would rather see both of those guys start than Devondre Campbell and the Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. I always have trouble saying his name. It's Flanagan Fowles. Like, it's so long. Like, it always gets me. It always gets me. Cannot speak. Man.
Always gets me. It always gets me. Yeah. I'm not big on Flanagan Fowles at all. You know who else I want to see? I want to see I'm drawing a blank on his name.
What position? I'll tell you exactly who it is.
Safety, special teamer. He's been a special teamer forever, special teams ace.
He plays safety for us?
Yeah, he's our safety. He's built like a corner. He just got 2 picks yesterday in practice.
George Odom?
Yeah, Odom. And the reason I'm excited to see him is because he really has been showing out during training camp. He was one of the guys that I made note of there. I was like, man, I'm really surprised at how good he is and how good he's playing. Every day he was kind of standing out. Then he got 2 more picks yesterday. I want to know if like he can put that together for real in an actual game, or if we're seeing some like fluky-ish, because you're talking about a guy who's like 30 years old, who's been a special teamer his whole career, and all of a sudden he's starting to flash. I'm curious to see if that's for real or not. So I want to see him play as well.
For him, I think his biggest thing is being such a veteran and everything like that. I think he will be a guy that constantly flashes, especially on special teams. I don't think, honestly, he might not play. I don't think, like, because if you think about it, he's technically a starter, and with Huff being out, like, and not knowing how Huff's going to come back, you might sit him as that lone veteran in the safety room.
How about Jake Moody? I want to see him kick.
That honestly, but for Jake Moody, what I want to see him do is I want to see him get the opportunity late in a half or in the game, like a situation that truly matters, rather than first drive of the game kicking a 30-yarder. Like, there's not much pressure there. I want to see a high pressure situation for him, or higher pressure. Obviously, preseason doesn't really matter, but where it actually counts. Going into the half, can he hit a field goal? Or ending the game, can he hit a field goal? Even if we're losing or we're winning, I want to see that situation.
Absolutely. Eric says, Jesse, I thought you said YouTube didn't let you dual stream. No, they do let you dual stream, but there's an issue, and Marco and I have discussed this, where if you have enough dual streams on your channel, and this is the problem. YouTube is not clear about anything. Love YouTube, but they are not clear about anything. So if they strip your monetization, all they tell you is this is like, here's the main reason, but they don't tell you like what the details of that reason are. It doesn't matter how many times you reach out. None of it matters. So what they're doing is they're getting people for duplicate content, even though it's their likeness. Like if Marco and I dual streamed every single day and I was the originator of the content, meaning it started on my channel and he's dual streaming, eventually they'll strip his monetization. That's what happened to Coach. That's what happened to Vish. And it's happened to a few other people around the community. So I just don't want to risk it. I'm not worried about my channel per se. I have enough content built up to where I can do it from time to time, but I am worried about people that stream with me having their monetization taken away. And so that's why Coach and I have decided to do things the way that we have. So hopefully that explains things, but that's just the way that it is. So
yeah, and this, we won't be dual streaming every week. I'm only dual streaming because there's information that eventually, when we talk about, I want people on my channel to actually see. So like, this isn't going to be an every week thing where I'm dual streaming weekly.
For sure. Dave Barclay says, not a fan of long names, Marco. He's not. He said, well, here we go. Marco, say Patriot Builders of Montana is the best.
Patriot Builders of Montana. It's not
Yeah.
that hard. It's because I
He's
say it's
got
slow, but
it.
like when I'm trying to say it fast, like even my last name, dude, Martin, like it's a long last name. Like why do it gotta be so long for?
Marco can't even say his own last name. That's wild.
Yeah, like,
Dave's now laughing. All right, this is a good segue here into the next topic, which is now it's turning into a Brandon Aiyuk show in just a second. Just a second. I do want to shout out the sponsor of today's show, Underdog Fantasy. Anybody that wants to either play fantasy football, best ball style, which I think is the easiest way to play fantasy. You draft the team, you don't have to set your lineup, you set it and forget it, and then you score points based off of what's happening throughout the league. Doesn't matter if they're on your quote unquote bench or not. Easiest way to play fantasy football. You can do that through Underdog. You can also do more or less. And if you sign up using my promo code, link in the description and pinned to the top of the chat, promo code LSS, you will get up to $250 in free cash, and you will get a free pick'em space. So that being said, appreciate you, Underdog, for sponsoring the show. Now let's get back to it. All right. S moving, I'm not going to say all the rest of it, says, think the Niners are using Pitt for contract negotiations. What is your thoughts on that, Marco?
Brother Bob, why are you trying to call, bro? You're watching the channel, you're watching the show. Why are you trying to call me right now? You don't want people to get the information or what? Come on, man.
Brother Bob.
Brother
Bob.
I've always been telling, and I've been telling Jesse this for quite some time. Like I've been explaining to him what's the situation that's going on. So I feel bad for Jesse having to listen to this because it's kind of like a broken record at this point. From everything that I've been told,
it's a repeat for me.
Yes, like everything that I've been told or that I have the knowledge of. Initially, the Niners had offered a very, very low offer, and it was very disrespectful to BA. It was 24.5. Other people that I've been able to talk to, 25, which is very low, especially when the offer was sent. Other contracts have already been signed. 24.5 is very similar to what Debo got 2 years ago. Ain't no receiver gonna take a contract that was 2 years old. Like that's how Brandon Aiyuk felt. He was like, hey, no disrespect to Debo, but that's a 2-year-old contract. If he was getting paid this year, essentially, that he didn't use those words or anything like that. But moving forward, he felt disrespected, but this entire time, he's never wanted to truly leave the Niners, and the Niners have never really wanted to get rid of him. So they've actually been taking a lot of calls. The Niners never got offered Amari Cooper. That's not a true thing. They were never going to take an offer from the Patriots for Kendrick Bourne in a second. Like that's another thing that's false. The 49ers were hoping that none of the teams offered more than $30 million. They were hoping that they could use the contract negotiations from these other teams to bring Brandon Aiyuk back to the table and say, none of the teams that we spoke to have truly given us the right value. And the teams that we have taken the offer from, or we are willing to accept the offer from, which is the Cleveland Browns and the Patriots, they're teams that you don't want to go to. So now we're in a situation where, one, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't want to go to any of the teams that the Niners want to accept a contract to, and the Niners can't get enough from the Steelers to make it worth it to trade him. Now, we have to remember that the Niners aren't going to just trade Brandon Aiyuk for a bag of peanuts. They don't have to. They own him on they own a franchise tag next year that they could tag him with. The 49ers understand that they could force him to play on the 5th-year option. Now, one thing that I do know is if they trade him, they do want at least a receiver in return. I know Pretty Ricky and all these guys on Twitter are talking about they're trying to do a 3-team trade. This isn't the NBA. That's one thing that right away people that I spoke to shut down. Like, one, this isn't the NBA. 2, the moment John Lynch picks up a phone, and for example, let's say John Lynch calls the Raiders, right? He's already the Raiders, and he's like, hey, I want Devontae Adams. And he's not offering Brandon Aiyuk. You know what's going to happen? Desperate times calls for desperate measures. All right, well, guess what? Now you got to give me a 1 and a 2 wait, hold on. How am I going to give you a 1 and a 2, LA, if or Vegas, if the Steelers only gave me a 2 and a 5? Now I get finessed. I lose a receiver, don't get nothing in return for him, and now I turn around and I trade what you gave me plus some to get a receiver. So when I'm hearing this, my guy's like, "Yeah, dude, from a while." And I've been telling Jesse, it's a very complicated situation because the Niners don't want to move him. They understand they don't have to move him. And this is why when everyone keeps saying there's a deal done, there's a deal done. No, there's not. They've never accepted any deals from any team. They've let BA and his agents negotiate to see what his value is. And the plan has always been from the Niners' perspective, hey, BA, let's bring it back to the table and let's negotiate. You got offers. They did the dirty work for us. Now let's find a middle ground. And whether it's 28-5, 30, let's do something now because you're way too valuable to our Super Bowl run. And let's get to it. Two other things. If the Niners do trade him, which is very, very possible, if let's say the Steelers end up offering Pat Freemuth to the Niners really want, that's something that they would be willing to entertain. If they offer Pat Freemuth in a third or Pat Freemuth in a second, it may get done. But as of now, the Steelers don't want to do that. If they do take less draft capital, just remember the 49ers were offered a first rounder from the Jaguars and a first rounder from the Steelers during the draft. They were also offered a really, really good receiver and a third during the draft. And they wanted Brandon Aiyuk in a fifth. So that just tells you a lot on how the situation is going. Understand the Niners value their assets. They value who's on their team. Another thing I'm going to, because I don't want to like speak too much in terms of telling you what's true. I'm telling you guys what's happening behind the scenes. Pay attention to how the 49ers have always worked. They decided Jimmy Garoppolo at one point was more valuable than a second rounder. Why the heck would they trade Brandon Aiyuk just because the media is putting pressure on him? That the media is tired of talking about this. Guess what? The Niners are willing to say, stop talking about it. We don't care. So pay attention to how they've reacted, how certain people, right, have came back and said the Niners could always re-sign him. It's very fluid. Why are they randomly saying that now? And I've been telling Jesse this for days. So why are they now saying this? So pay attention to how their wording has been.
What's funny is so Marco and I, basically every time I see something crazy on the internet, like on Twitter, I just go to Marco. I'm like, can you confirm? And every single time he brings me back down, he's like, dude, there's no trade in place. There is no trade in place. There's never been a trade in place. Yes, they are talking to X team. Here's the reality of the situation. But you said this 2 days ago. You told me, you said, watch, you're going to hear over the next 48 hours that they're trying to get a third team involved. And the reason for that is because they're trying to get the price upped from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here we are, third team involved. And then you told me something else, but that came true as well. So it's like, all right, but here's the question. The original thought was, let's shop him and let other teams make the deal for us. What they probably didn't expect, which did happen, is the Patriots did go over $30 million. So do you think that at this point is throwing a monkey wrench into this where they're like, we were hoping that everybody be around 28. We would say, hey, we're a better team. Let's come in at 26-5. Everything's good to go. Let's move on. And now you've got the Patriots coming in at 30-something, which means he doesn't want to. If it was all about money, he would have said yes to that. And he would have gone there. He didn't, which means it's not all about money. He really does want to compete as well. But when the Pittsburgh Steelers are, say, at 28, 29, and he knows that's a good organization, and the 49ers, who are at 24-5, are probably only willing to come up to 26. He's like, listen, I can make $2.5-3 million more per season, still be with a good organization who appreciates me, and I'm good with that. Like, do you think that threw a monkey wrench into this whole thing when the Patriots are like, yeah, we'll give you over 30? And he's like, whoa, all right, sweet, let's talk.
No, you know why?
Why?
Because now in this situation, if this happens, the 49ers just got to go, all right, well, that's the only team we're trading you to now. You already said no. You don't want to be in the East Coast. Now that's the only team we're trading you to. You want the highest money? Go there. We'll figure out a trade package with the Patriots. They're gonna have better draft picks, but he's already said no to them. He doesn't want to go to the East Coast. They took. Remember when and I told Jez, like, they're gonna take they're not involved, and they're gonna eventually say we weren't in. Yep, we got turned down. We're not in. We're done. So like that, to me, I don't see that affecting it. What I do know though too, what I was told was it wasn't a good look when you had a lot of alumni and your owner Jed York at practice yesterday, and
I'm glad you're bringing this up. And somebody really quick, hold on, really quick. Somebody in the chat said, "Hey, the title of your stream is This Can Be Resolved. Here's how." Explain that. This is what I was going to get to was to me, and I'll let you go in a second because I want you to explain
go first.
This.
You go first.
But I wanted to say this. Usually Kyle is the guy that comes in and saves the deal. All right. One thing that we do know is last Wednesday, when the DAP and everything happened, which was also the day, by the way, that we found out that Cleveland was involved very seriously for Brandon Aiyuk. And this is when they started to have conversations about trading Brandon Aiyuk, serious conversations. But they put things on hold because at the end of practice, he was going to meet with Kyle Shanahan. Him and Kyle met. Things went well. However, contract conversations have not progressed in the way that Aiyuk wants. So he remains steadfast in wanting to be traded. So knowing that Shanahan normally comes in and saves these deals, and he attempted to here and was unsuccessful, there's only one person here that can actually make this thing happen. He's the owner of the team. Doesn't matter what Parag wants to offer. Doesn't matter what Jed or Kyle wants to offer. If he says, get the effing deal done, the deal gets done because he's the owner. So that parlays into what you're about to talk about with the alumni being there. Jed was in attendance on 8-7. What do you believe he saw on 8-7?
I believe he saw a receiver room that struggled, a rookie that's already hurt. So they know that, in order for me to win a Super Bowl, I need to have Brandon Aiyuk on this roster. The receiver room struggled mightily yesterday in front of alumni. And for him to see that, it opens your eyes like, oh, whoa, that kind of scary, right? Especially when you have a top 10 receiver on your roster who just wants a contract. So I think it ends up getting done. Now they may force him, hey, you know what? Play on your fifth year. We can't get a contract done. Play on your fifth year. We'll talk about it at the end of the season. We're going to franchise tag you. Just letting you know we will franchise tag you because we're going to trade you if you want to get traded. So I think we're a long way from having a resolution. And I think for this whole entire situation to be at this point, I think it's more so 49ers related, Jesse, in terms of they let it get this far by not wanting to negotiate and giving them a $24.5 or $25 million offer. And that's where it's gotten really, really tricky for the 49ers, where you disrespect somebody, it's about principle. He just wants to feel respected and loved. The moment you bring him to the table and like, all right, we really want to negotiate with you, we're actually going to talk to you and negotiate the right way, he's going to feel much better about it.
Yeah, most certainly he is.
And it's not, I know a lot of people keep saying it's just $2 million more. It's not $2 million more. The offer that the media put out there, that's $26.5. That is what I was told that the Niners are willing to go to. That's the max. Their offer that they gave him was 24 or 25. If they're willing to go to 26 and he wants 28.5, their last offer, that's another $4 million. So it's not just 2, it's $4 million. But the biggest thing is guaranteed money. I know Brandon Aiyuk doesn't want a 2-year money that's guaranteed in the first 2 years. He wants stuff that's rolled over into year 3. He wants guaranteed money over the first 3 years. And every other player for the Niners outside of Nick Bosa and a couple of other, like the big contracts, they only get guaranteed money up front, and then they end up getting restructured BA wants to be treated like a regular player around the NFL, and he understands how contracts works. He's called people who've had receiver negotiations. He understands what he needs for his contract. So that's pretty much where we are. Do you have did I explain that right, Jesse, on how I explained it to you
No,
the
I
entire
think
time?
yeah. I think you explained it really well. So here's the question, and you don't know the answer to this because now we're going to get into speculation. Let's stop what is known and let's now speculate a little bit, and let's make sure we separate the two, because the last thing I want to do is for you to say something that's an opinion, and then people come back later if it doesn't happen, and they're like, "Whoa, I thought you knew." You know what I mean? You know how people can be. So now that we're in
Can I bring up a
speculation,
quote? Can I bring up a quote real quick from Hush Masada, who just spoke on 95.7 The Game?
yeah, go ahead.
So he said, you have a team willing to pay Aiyuk a little more than 32 million. So it might have been 32.5 with someone else that I know had heard. And he's
Yeah.
not even asking that much from his own team. You wouldn't give him 28 million a year, which is what he's been asking. And I just said that.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd give him 26. That's nothing. The max, what I just say, the max they would go 26. So I'm just saying I just wanted to bring that up because he just said that 5 minutes ago. And I just saw it right now on 95.7 The Game. So I just wanted to, before we get into our actual speculation and opinions now.
Okay. So now let's talk opinion. I believe the Steelers are not ever going to offer a first round pick. They're not ever going to offer Pickens at this stage, right? They're bidding against themselves. So Pickens is not going to be a part of things. First round pick's not going to be a part of things. Is there a realistic package, whether that's 2 2s, whether you said a second and Fairmouth, is there a realistic package that Pittsburgh can offer the 49ers, in your opinion, that can swoon them into saying, yes, we will accept that deal that doesn't involve the first round pick or Pickens?
No, I don't see it, because if you're Freermuth and Pickens, those are two of their staples to their roster. They're not going to want to give up a first because they offered that first during the draft. So now when you're looking at everything, the 49ers know that they're competing against themselves. So the faster you come to a conclusion, the less value you're going to get, right? Like, so for example, if me and Jesse are negotiating and I'm trying to buy his car off of him, he knows I'm not the first offer that I ask for him. Like, hey Jesse, I want that car 5,000. He's like, nah, man, I had it set for 12, right? He's not going to say yeah right away if I'm the only one that's asking, because he's like, I'd rather just wait, I'll hold off, knowing that I really, really need that car. I really, really need it. He'll hold off, knowing that maybe in a month when the season starts, or right before I got to start driving to work, I'm going to give him my best offer. So there's no reason for the Niners to sell now when technically they don't got to be desperate. The team that needs to be desperate or wants to be desperate to get him into the building is the Steelers. The Steelers need to act now. You want him now? Guess what? You better offer your best package. And it better come with a 1, or it better come with one of the players that the Niners want. It's not James Daniels. So I don't know why people get throwing James Daniels out there. That doesn't fit the Niners roster. If we're looking at the Niners roster, just speculating and observing the roster, they don't need that. So they better come with serious package in order to get them. And I don't see the Steelers doing it.
Okay. Sunil says, is there any truth to BA not being happy with Kyle Shanahan, i.e. unhappy with his usage?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think it's more so he's been wanting, everyone keeps throwing out there, and I don't know why it's been thrown out there. And I mentioned it before a couple of times that the 30 million was a big number, and a lot of people kept mentioning it, like, makes him look greedy, right? Like, I think more so than anything, he's more upset and frustrated with the Niners could have easily have shut down things and shut down conversations and fixed things between him and the Niners by saying, no, that's, you guys are wrong. But they were letting this narrative run that he wants 30 million. So when they do come back and sign him at the 28, and if they do cave in,
it looks like they
look like geniuses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I think
it's 30, he never 30 was never a number he wanted. That by the way, was the other thing. Remember when I said there was 2 things that you told me? That was the other thing. You said that if he is traded to Pittsburgh, the number is not going to be 30, and you can bank on that. And it sounds like rumor is it's around 28.5. So You were right about that too. Okay. There was another question. 187. He did answer this. He said it's not the NBA. There is no 3-team deal that's being talked about for real.
Just to give so when I did ask my guy on that one, and this is me actually speaking about what I heard. I asked him about that and he laughed at me. He goes, he goes, think about it. He goes, if you called me and you're trying to get something and you're like, hey, we just traded Brandon Aiyuk. I need Devontae Adams. Oh, they're gonna hang up the phone and they're like, what can we get from them? Have you guys ever seen that draft day movie where like the GM becomes very desperate because he wants that player and he ends up getting all his picks back? That would be exactly what's going to happen because the team's going to end up having to overpay to get a receiver in the building because they just got finessed by the Steelers.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to just be like, all right, Steelers gave us a second and a fifth. We gave up Aiyuk and a sixth. All right, we'll give you the second and fifth for Devontae Adams. And they'd be like, no, you're not. You're going to give us a first. And be like, whoa, hold on a second. We just wanted to give you this second and this fifth. You don't know? Oh, okay.
This shining object
because you're desperate. You're trying to win a Super Bowl and you need a receiver, which is very well known to everybody. Absolutely not. Guess what? You're going to overpay. Of course that would happen. So no, they're not going to be able to just flip the picks over to another team. That makes a lot of sense. Jay says, Jesse, Drake Jackson out for the year. Yes. Did see that. We talked about it actually. Let's see. Dave Barclay says, spend some money, Brother Bob. Yeah, Brother Bob, spend some money. Harold says, with these...
Brother Bob on both channels, Brother Bob. Go to both channels, Brother Bob.
With these draft and offseason additions, if we keep Aiyuk, best team in this regime? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think maybe on paper, but the problem is injuries are a real thing. And I also do question, I think the defense overall is better than it was last year. However, I still question if they have enough up the middle to stop the run consistently. And just like an offensive line being so important to an offense, you can have all the weapons, but if you can't keep your quarterback upright, all of it means nothing. If you can't stop the run up the middle, all of it means nothing. So they're going to have to show me they can stop the run up the middle and they can protect Purdy before I'm willing to go that far. But I think player for player, they're very talented. Dave Barclay says BB wants the beans. Oh, he got the beans. All Niner says CMC said former teammate. Yeah, we definitely heard that one. That was interesting to say the least.
Regarding that, though, like I could get why is a slip up. The whole team's thinking he's getting traded. Like all these, the ESPN, everyone's talking about Brandon Aiyuk's about to be traded. I could see that slip up. It wasn't intentional. That's for like, it was not intentional.
Shady Luke says the Steelers won't give up a first because they have a major question at the quarterback position, and that first could be used for a quarterback. Exactly. Here we go. JUS moving says, please talk about Trent. What do you think's going on with Trent? Actually, it's a good question.
I'm thinking I might just retire, chill out here where I live. I got a beautiful family, beautiful land. If you don't pay me, I ain't playing. And you better come right. I ain't talking about this year. I want this year or next year. And if you don't, guess what? I'm happy being a Hall of Famer. And my ring when I get into the Hall of Fame will feel just as good as getting a Super Bowl ring. See y'all later. Come talk to me when you guys are ready.
By the way, he's done this before. So this is not far-fetched. This is not an Aiyuk situation where it's like, okay, Aiyuk might, he might not. Oh, he showed up to camp. No, clearly him just not showing up and then also doing this in Washington, he will do that. So I think that's what the 49ers have to figure out, which is interesting because most likely he is asking for guaranteed money over the course of the next 2 years. The Niners also know that if he retires next offseason, that really straps them cap-wise because they've got this guaranteed money to him. He is not on the team, and now they got to find his replacement, and they've got to pay him to not be here a big sum of money. So I think that's a real holdup from the 49ers standpoint. Like, that's a real thing. It's a real thing.
And it essentially, you don't want to lose cap space when you do sign him next year. He retires, and you guaranteed a lot of money to him that he wanted guaranteed money up front, and he's like his body breaks down, and he doesn't feel right. That it could cause a lot of things where he essentially retires, and I think he's rightfully has the right to sit there and say, you know what, I'm ready to retire. I've almost lost my life to the game of football with the Washington Commanders not handling things right. I respect his decision because he has all the leverage with the Niners not taking an offensive tackle, and that was a big issue. That was a big problem.
LD says BA just said he'd sign for 28 million. Was it BA or was it Hushmanzada on BA's behalf? Which, by the way, that's correct. The number is 28 million. It's not 30, as Marco just stated. But appreciate that, LD, for letting us know. And then Brother Bob says, "Here's $2, Marco. Do the stanky leg."
You don't want to see me do that, brother. Trust me.
All right, bro. I know you got to get out of here. You have a hard stop.
We have a couple of we have 5 if you want, like a couple of questions or talk about whatever you want to talk about. We have 5.
Well, I mean, for me,
what's your thoughts on all of this? Because you're sitting back, like you've known some stuff, like as a fan sitting back, how do you feel about all of this?
I feel like the 49ers have mishandled this whole situation, regardless of how it plays out. Whether they trade him now, the reason that they mishandled it, if they trade him now or soon, is because they could have gotten more at the draft. And if draft capital is involved, they could have used that draft capital to get a player to help them while they're making this one final run here before they kind of retool things. So if they trade him, they botched it that way. If they sign him, especially if they sign him for around 28, that's what the going market was this whole time. So what was the point of all of this? Why did it take so long? Why did you come to an agreement in principle, and then when it came time to negotiate, you change things up? And then you've got a pissed off Brandon Aiyuk, a guy who doesn't want to work with Lynch or Parag, wants to talk directly to Kyle. Like, why? Why did any of that need to happen when all you did was cave anyways? So what essentially he wanted the whole time. So no matter what the 49ers have done, they're causing an issue that didn't need to happen. Here's my opinion. I have no issues with them deciding not to pay Brandon Aiyuk. If they felt like they wanted him to play on the 5th-year option and they'll figure it out this year, that's fine. But that means you don't trade him. You don't entertain trades. You stop talking to him about contracts and you say, we're going to make you play on the 5th-year option. That's what we've decided. That's what it is. So we'll see you week 1 or we won't. We'll figure it out. But eventually you're going to have to play. And when you play, it'll be close to the playoffs anyways. We'll take you then. We'll make this run together. We'll figure it out next year. I have no issue with that. And I have no issue with them trading him. You just have times to do it. You've got to pick a lane and you've got to stick in that lane and you've got to make that decision very early and you've got to stand by that decision. The 49ers went from, we want him to be here, to 5th-year option, to, okay, we're willing to go long-term, but now we're willing to trade you, to, we don't want to trade you to this team because they don't want to offer enough. So now we want to keep you. And it's, the whole thing is unnecessary in my opinion. And I think the whole situation, people are mad at BA because he's the player and they root for the team. The whole situation is caused by the San Francisco 49ers, period.
And I know someone mentioned, I don't know, it's farther up now, but they said, but BA never requested a trade until July after the draft. That didn't stop the 49ers from taking these trade calls. Like they were entertaining trading them. So at that point, if you're entertaining to trade a player, him and Debo, then that shows you that you're not really about to actually signing him. So at that point, if you knew you weren't going to be able to meet the demands of a high market for receiver, should have moved him.
Yeah, and listen, if he can request a trade all he wants, but if they're saying we don't care, our offer's our offer, either that or the 5th-year option. Okay, we're not entertaining trades. We're not thinking of trading you. We expect you in a Niners uniform this year. We'll figure it out next year or take the offer that's on the table that we're not changing. I'm fine with that. I would side with BA still on that, but I can understand where the 49ers are coming from. They're trying to budget for a quarterback getting paid. They've got high-end contracts in Bosa and Debo, and they're trying to figure out the Trent situation. CMC, I get all of it. It makes sense to me. But what they're doing now and doing this back and forth, maybe, but we like them, but not that much. And it's all hogwash to me, and it all could have been avoided. It all should have been avoided, period. I think immaturity can be given a pass from a young man who is trying to get paid for the first time ever. Immaturity when it comes to your head coach, potentially your GM, and a full organization that has been through this 1,000 times over, that's unacceptable to me. And I feel like the 49ers have handled this in an immature way. And I think that is factual based off the article that came out that talked about how Kyle Shanahan is becoming tired of the situation and irritated. But this is business. This is business. You don't care if a player gets tired of it and frustrated. You're trying to take them to the cleaners. So when the tables are turned, know that that's all it is and rise above it, period. So that's the way that I see it.
No, absolutely. And I think you have a very valid point when it comes to how they handled everything. And I think fans should be upset and should be frustrated because as an organization, like there's other NFL teams that are looking at this and they understand what's going on. Like it's not just a BA thing. So definitely concerning. Obviously, a lot of things could happen with the situation. The Steelers could pony up and they could end up trading what the 49ers want. The Niners could end up trading them to a different destination. If another team gets into the mix, I don't see another team getting into the mix at all. I don't see the Niners trading for a receiver after they trade Brandon Aiyuk.
I think DA's been very clear. It's the Steelers, it's the 49ers, or it's the Commanders. The Commanders are not getting involved. The Steelers are already involved. No other team is going to even come forth and give an offer. You know, they watched what happened with the Patriots. The Patriots met the 49ers demands. They more than met Brandon Ayuk's demands, and they still couldn't get a deal done. Why would any other team at this point enter the fold knowing that they have zero shot? They're not going to do it. All they're going to do is help the Steelers and 49ers figure it out, and they don't care. So it's not going to happen.
No, absolutely.
And I think if we hear anything outside of that, it's probably completely made up in the 49ers' favor to try to get more. Shady Luke says the scary thing is with Trent to the outside as an Eagles fan, Trent was kind of getting worked at times in 2023. I agree. Super Bowl included. Very, very good player. But, I mean, Father Time catches up with everybody. Dave Barclay says, I paid $2 to see Marco do the stanky leg.
Up that price. We're up that price, Dave. If you're trying to see that, you better up that price.
28 million. Dave Barclay says, aren't all messes caused by the Niners side? Just saying. Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that BA is perfect in this situation, but I'm willing to let it slide from a 26-year-old who is trying to have generational money for the first and probably only time in his life. I'll let it slide. From the organization, not so much. KC Cold says all this drama just to have him sign and extended a week before the season. Zero benefits to holding this up. Bad business and another drama-filled offseason. Completely agree. And actually seeing that it says KC Cold, I thought you were going to say something like all of this just to lose at the Chiefs again. I don't know if you saw the video of Patrick Mahomes throwing behind the back passes, but I retweeted it and said, yeah, we're going to beat this team this year, huh? All right, got it.
That behind the back pass.
They're not beating the Chiefs. This is not going to happen. If they have to play the Chiefs, they're not going to beat them in the Super Bowl. So let's just forget about that. As long as Patrick Mahomes is playing, if they play him in the Super Bowl, I'm not picking the 49ers this year. I'm not falling for it again. I'm just not. So anyways, that being said, now we are out of here. Much love to everybody. Hope you have a blessed weekend and preseason football right around the corner. Can't wait. Thanks, Marco. Peace.
Marco Schefter out.